Hello, my name is Makani Kikahuna, and welcome to the show.
Welcome back. Yeah, man, how you doing? You good? I know you like that. I know you like that. You been back, man. I see the girls in the club, they getting wild for me. And all the pretty chicks.
Well, welcome back, indeed. It has been a long time since I did one of these, and I decided to just go ahead and drop one real quick. I've mentioned this before. It is very difficult to get guests to be on a podcast, and I don't know what the hesitation is. Maybe from two small potatoes, or people don't like hearing their own voice, or they think it's going to be political. I don't know what the deal is, but it's just hard to get people to come on. So I think my strategy now is to just talk to people I know and get people I know's story rather than going after the bigger story, at least for now. So it's Monday afternoon. We are in the midst of Corona Gate, or COVID Gate, whatever you want to call it. I am sitting at home. It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and normally I would be at work, but my hours were recently cut in half, so I've got some time on my hands. So there's really no excuse not to do a podcast, besides the not having guests part of it. I really have been eating non-stop since I got home. It feels like 2 hours ago. I had some peanut butter pretzels, some spicy pickles, some macaroni and cheese that I made last night, an orange, and a cookie. So I'm really making the most of my time. Che is napping in the other room. Laura is also home, working from home at the moment. So I'm going to record this while it's a little bit quiet in the house, and we'll get going. This is a very cool episode with Duane, Quintana. I've known her since, we'll talk about it in the episode, but she's a really fascinating person, really good, interesting, compelling journey she's been on, and she lays it all out for us, the listener. So I hope you like this episode. I hope that you are glad that I dropped a new episode, and maybe with this time on my hands I can drop a few more. I have mentioned this on Facebook. I'm always looking for guests, and if you have something you want to talk about and want to get off your chest, or you just feel like your story has not been heard or is not known, I'd be happy to have you on as a guest. And like I said, it's not a political show. I'm not trying to stir up any kind of whatever. I don't know. I just want to tell people stories, and people do have interesting stories, and the idea being that people live between cultures. I'm sure we could shoehorn you into that motif. So yeah, hit me up, send me a text, send me a message, we'll get you on. So anyways, here we go, episode 13. We're back. Bye. Okay, everybody, this is Geno. We're back at it again on Native as I Can Be, Between Two Cultures. Very, very excited about our guest today. I have known this guest probably, 15 years maybe, which is unbelievable. But my guest today is Duane. How do you say your last name?
Quintana.
Duane Quintana.
Welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Geno.
So I originally met Duane in Boise, Idaho, uh, back in '04, '05, I think, somewhere in there. And I was volunteering at an HIV testing facility, I guess you could call it, there in Boise. And you were the founder of it, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Is that Alpha Allies Link for the Prevention of HIV and AIDS?
It was a really cool thing, free HIV testing. Um, I really enjoyed my time there, but we can go back a little further
Okay.
and talk about kind of where you grew up and your kind of family situation.
Okay. So I grew up in a small town in Idaho called Wendell, which was about 100 miles from Boise, kind of it's in the Magic Valley, so near Twin Falls. Um, and it was also called the Hub City, but it was a town of it was around 3,000 people. I grew up in with a family that valued generosity and kindness, and but also we were poor. I grew up in a I spent most of my life in a trailer growing up, and my dad had used substances for a good part of my younger years, and so that definitely kind of I guess painted my childhood, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly I don't remember a lot of what happened, like my life before age 12, which has been something at this time in my life I've really been kind of contemplating a little bit more about and kind of been really curious about it. But I don't think that it was because my life was so horrible or like things were so whatever, but I do think that maybe it was just a bit much for me to handle,
Yeah.
given my sensitive nature, I guess. But who knows? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in that small town, and my family. It's like I never really quite felt like I fit in with my family, and I really kind of felt like my family didn't think I really fit into. I think we all loved each other. We just didn't know how to be with one another. I happened to do really well in school. I got involved with church when I was really young. And I just seemed to have a lot of things going for me, which was not something that my family really wanted to like support and like nurture and really help. But they didn't really know how to.
Is the family religious? Were you all sort of involved in church, or was just you?
Actually, no. Like my family was not church-going folk. So church is kind of it's just where I went. I had an aunt who took me when I was young, and it was just a place that I really enjoyed. It was a place that I felt comfortable. I think it was a place that I felt safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I just liked who I could be at church. I had a harder time being myself in other places, like at home or at school. I worked so hard to get good grades and to do well that I kind of lacked in the social aspect of things from like my point of view.
So, so then you're saying there that you didn't feel like you felt like you fit in the family, and they didn't. What would be an example of something like that, or is it just kind of a vibe that you were all feeling?
I think it was on a lot of levels, but there was a part of me like I didn't want to be there. Like I really wanted to be like go out into the world and have some sort of success, and like maybe make money. I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to build a home, maybe for me and my family at some point. And my family really wanted that for me, but I think it was the belief that many people in my life didn't have that opportunity. Like was really kind of, other than my aunt, was kind of the first one to really kind of go to college or anything like that. So it was like it was just going off into a world and doing things that I seemed to be suited for, but that people in my family had never had an opportunity to experience, I guess.
They kind of just stuck around Wendell.
Yeah, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but I think it's just something like I just didn't fit.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm a queer person, and I've always been, and I think that was an element of it, even though I didn't know it at the time. Like I didn't have the words for it, and
right.
I don't think I was in an environment in which allowed me to really allow me to be as full as I guess I am now. And so I think there was that element as well. It's like that was a way for me to get into a different environment, to get out into the world, and to meet different people.
And I think small town Idaho or I don't know, small town anywhere really doesn't seem to me like the kind of place that's really going to facilitate that lifestyle, if you want to call it that. But that's not slander. That's just sort of my.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's really hard to be a queer kid or like in a small town area, and I don't think it's necessarily. I mean, it was tough. Like I never realized it. Like now I have, like I can look back and I can have words for it. But my dad censored my femininity. Like if I put my hand on my face, or if I wasn't sitting the right way, or if I wasn't speaking up loud enough, or like those sorts of things, my dad would kind of correct me about that.
Yeah.
And at the time I didn't necessarily know why, but I realized that those were more, I guess, feminine ways of being in the world. And I don't think my dad, I don't even know if he was really aware of it. I think it was just his way of trying to protect me and trying to build me into a person that wasn't going to be vulnerable in the world. But it was really, it really stunted my ability to really like be myself and to let myself out and to really come to understand who that was.
So do you think, so you had these plans or ideas to go to college and be an architect, and do you think that that maybe underlying those aspirations was being queer, and that you want to go do these big things and maybe you can't do them in Wendell, but maybe part of it was like, I think I can grow and be more who I am outside of this bubble?
I mean, I think there might have been something, like my spirit might have been very aware of that, but I definitely didn't have that sort of experience. Like like even as a teenager, like I didn't question my sexual orientation. I didn't question my gender. But I wasn't sexually active. I was very active in church, and I think church was maybe a place where I also could kind of, there wasn't the expectation of being sexual or being, having any sort of sexuality really. And so I think for me, that's why I might have also been drawn to that area, because I think I just wasn't in an environment in which I could really, I guess, connect with. I don't know. It just wasn't a part of my life before I moved away. And then once I moved away, I was able to kind of like explore that a little bit. And even that was kind of like scary and an accident, and I didn't really like, it wasn't intentional. It was just something that I came to understand and see about myself that was there all along, that I had just never allowed myself to embrace.
Wow, that's so. How old were you then when that's obviously after you moved out of Wendell. So how did you end up getting out of Wendell?
So when I graduated high school, like I'd worked so hard to get good grades so that I could get like a like some sort of a scholarship or some sort of opportunity like to go do something, but I didn't know like that I was supposed to like apply for schools and like you know what I mean, like there was a process getting into a school. And so I actually ended up I moved out to Phoenix, Arizona, where I got accepted into a technical institute where I started studying architectural drafting. I moved out there and I stayed with an aunt who was the aunt who first got me into church when I was young, and she was also the only other person in our family that ever kind of went to a higher education. She went to DeVry when she was young as well, and so she was definitely kind of a mentor and kind of a hero of mine. Like she was somebody who got away and went on to this life that was different than where we had come from.
Shout out to Phoenix, my old hometown, by the way.
Right. I had listened to I'd listened to a few of your podcasts and heard that you had spent some time in Apache. Was it Apache Junction?
Yeah, Apache Junction. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not quite Phoenix, I guess. That's sort of the
In the area.
that's sort of the Nampa to Boise, I guess, is what or maybe even the Caldwell to Boise, but
Right.
so was it in Phoenix area where you started to kind of realize these things about yourself and
Yeah.
explore those ideas?
Yeah, I mean, it was such a huge culture shock for me, one, to just go from like this little teeny town to like this huge city that was, thankfully, it was really sprawled out. So it wasn't like moving to New York City or like even San Francisco where I'm at now, where it's like a bunch of people on top of people, but there was still like a lot of people. And so that was quite the adjustment that I had. And I remember like accidentally showing up to this Denny's. Like I went out to Denny's with a bunch of friends from school, from the tech school, and we had went to like the fair or something, the city fair, county fair or something, and we decided to stop by this Denny's at it was a Denny's that's nickname was Jenny's, and it was like this really gay kind of like hangout where everybody went after the clubs, and so it was like full of gay people, like flamboyant and wild, and I was like enamored but also like petrified. And because I'd never seen people before, let alone like so many of them.
Yeah.
And so and then I was also with people that I didn't know, how they would be about it all. And even I think even at that time I didn't realize that why I was so scared or why I was, like I don't even think I really realized at that time either. But I eventually had a couple of experiences where like I met guys online and met like on a phone. I met a guy on a phone, and um, I really had a hard time with it because I was also such a spiritual person. Like I went to school for architectural drafting and then actually dropped out of that halfway through the program because I felt called to work in to be a pastor. So I went to Grand Canyon University, which is a Southern Baptist university, um, where I was just right outside of like in the Phoenix area, where I majored in theater and I minored in Christian studies. And I wanted to work with youth people, youth like with youth, and kind of like theater and kind of like in like a church setting, because that was something I got to do when I was younger and I loved it.
So was your family supportive of a big move like this to move down to Phoenix? And
yeah, my family was super supportive, and like they definitely like I think they definitely like aspired for this life for me just as much as I did. You know what I mean? Like they were super super supportive in all the ways that they could.
that's killer.
But I was definitely trying to be really mindful because when my aunt went away, I felt like there was this idea like she went off and somehow she became better than everyone else. And that was sort of the perception that I heard a lot growing up, and I never wanted to be like the person who went off to have a different type of life, but I never wanted them to think that I thought I was better than them.
Yeah.
And so, and I now I have a relationship with my aunt now again, and like that's definitely like I don't know. It's just like I don't have that feeling about her that they spoke of a lot of when I was growing up. So, and in some ways, I think that really held me back. Actually, my want to still keep my family I don't know, like I still feel like I struggle. I sometimes
Mhm.
I feel like I still live in that trailer house. Um, and and yeah, and that's just not where I live anymore.
Well, and it's interesting. That's something that is in a lot of. It's in Native culture too. It's like, all right, do you stay on the res and kind of, you know, grind it out, or you leave the res and you go out and you try to become something, and like, oh, he thinks he's better than us. He's gonna leave the res, and the people who leave the res don't come back, and it's just like
Yeah,
it's a very hard decision to make.
but I also think that they want that for me too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? It's this weird sort of like, and I think they're conflicted too in the sense of like, I want you to go do that and be away, but I also want you here with me.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like I have a lot of that kind of back and forth with my family. I've had over the years, for sure.
Y-
Yeah, but yeah, where do I go from there? But basically, like, I um, I just don't even know where to go. Do you have a prompt for me?
Um. Okay. So yeah. So you switched over to Grand Canyon University or state,
Yeah,
whatever it was, and started dipping into theater and
Christian studies.
Christian studies. I mean, that's a pretty good jump from architecture to
Yeah.
theater.
Well, I was still super super involved with church. I was super super involved when I was growing up. I was super involved once I got to Arizona, and so like it really made a lot of sense to me and probably like people in my family. Like it wasn't like out of character, but that was also when I did have like an experience with a guy sexually.
Mm-hmm.
I'd actually had an experience with a guy sexually when I was 16 too, but I just thought that was some sort of like weird demon possession or fluke sort of thing. I don't know. It was weird. I had some crazy ideas, but I just thought that was a thing that happened, and then I just never went there again. And then I ended up hooking up with a guy, and it was like I met him, I hooked up with him, had a great time with him, and then I went home and I burnt everything that had anything to do with that experience because I just felt like it was like I wasn't supposed to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
But then, and so that was a lot of my experience with being gay is that would happen, and then I would retreat back, and then that would happen again, and um, I ended up um, I ended up dropping out of school my first semester with Grand Canyon University. I had started they told me that they thought I had leukemia, which ended up being a misdiagnosis, but it was an opportunity for me to get out of school without having to like pay anything. So I took it as a way of getting out and then to try to figure out like what I wanted to do. And at that time, I was dating a girl, um, and I loved her. I loved her. I really cared about her a lot, but she ended up dumping me because I wouldn't have sex with her. And I just wasn't, I was intimately connected with her, but I wasn't connected with her in a sexual way. Um, and so I I broke her heart. Like
Mm-hmm.
I realized how hurt she was by that, and I was just like, this gay thing, maybe you need to like figure that out because it's not cool to bring other people into this. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like 19 at the time, and so like I turned 20 in February. That was like January when she left me. So February I turned 20, and then I was like, okay, I kind of came out to being gay to myself,
Mm-hmm.
but not really anybody else. And so I got a job in a gay bar to learn how to be gay. And
Yeah.
and then like that May, just a few months later, I was diagnosed with HIV, and it was like a huge shock to me
I can imagine. Well, no, I
because it
can't
was
imagine, but I'm sorry. Go ahead. Well, let me
no.
stop you for a second. So you had an experience or two with guys before
Mhm.
you had actually kind of decided. I don't know. No, I didn't mean decided. Before you came to the realization, maybe that you were gay. So how did you get from just kind of experimenting to to figuring it out? And I guess what I'm asking is, what when you were having these other experiences, did you
Mhm.
attribute those to curiosity or confusion, or how did that go?
You know, I didn't necessarily know, and I had only had like a couple experiences. I had started dating a guy. That's why I even got tested, is because he had chlamydia. He was a bisexual guy, and so I went in and got tested, and that's when I found out. But it was like, to me, I was really spiritually, I was really conflicted, because I felt really drawn toward it. It felt, um, I don't know, I just felt like there was a pull in me. But then it was like the churches and like this God aspect, it didn't seem to match, and I was really conflicted in my spirit with it. Um, I actually, and eventually, I had like I've never really shared this, but I just really battled with it. It's like I burnt my clothes, and like,
Mm-hmm.
where I would like, I would just kind of like try to put it away, and then it would like happen again or whatever, and I remember one night I came home and I was just kind of upset, and I was laying in my bed and I looked up in my wall, and I I saw like in the wall, it was like, and it wasn't like this like crazy sort of thing, but I just saw an image of what a lot of people say is the face of Jesus, which I don't necessarily
Mm-hmm.
agree with now, but like it was like basically like Jesus was there, his face, within like the texture of the wall,
Mm-hmm.
but he was crying, and I then all of a sudden I just got like this feeling to write down something, and I just wrote down like these words in the dark, and I went to bed, and I woke up the next morning and I read it, and I wish I had it, I'd share it with you, but basically it was just kind of like a poem or like this thing, and it was basically like just like asking God, like, where were you to stop me from these things, like, if
Oh man.
like, where were you? And basically I just got the message that like actually, like, God wasn't sad that I was like gay or doing gay things. It was actually sad that I was tormented by it.
Yeah.
And that for me then got me to understand. And for a long time, I still just thought like, okay, maybe I'm fucked up, maybe I'm damaged, but I can't not be this way.
Right.
So I'm going to be this way, and God's going to love me anyway because He can understand why I'm this way, right? And for a long time, it was kind of this like negative aspect of myself, or it was some sort of like almost defect, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, and thankfully, I know different than that today. But for a while there, I really struggled, and I really struggled with my relationship with God, with my family, with a lot of different things.
Could you imagine though if that message, if people not only heard that message but felt that message, not only about themselves but about other people, where we would be at as a country? Because I think that's pretty powerful to, even if to have this, um, experience that says like, I'm not sad you are who you are. I'm sad that you're not cool with who you are.
Yeah,
And I think if in that, God loves you anyway, maybe more,
yeah,
um, that's really powerful.
yeah. And I felt like that was like my understanding at that time, and that was okay, like to kind of move forward. And then I got my HIV diagnosis, and that then like because I could still go to church and not talk about being gay because I felt like God was good with me, but I wasn't good. I didn't know about church people yet. And then when I got my HIV diagnosis, I felt like I really needed church. Like I
Mm-hmm.
really, like, because they were the only thing that I had, and they were always the thing that kept me safe from the world. And all of a sudden, I had this thing about me that I couldn't bring to them. And so like I stopped doing church, because I couldn't tell them that
Mm-hmm.
I was a faggot with AIDS. And I use those words because that's how I was experiencing myself, and that's the way that I felt that the world saw me. And so it kind of um, it created a lot of trauma and a lot of heaviness for me, and it was not what I had planned. That's
Right.
not what I was. That's not what I was supposed to do. I even believed that God wanted me to do amazing things for him. Like
Mm-hmm.
I believed that God had created me in some special way to do some pretty cool shit, and I had fucked it up by getting AIDS. And I was just like, it was a really hard reality for me to accept. I really felt like I'd let myself down, I'd let my family down, and I'd let God down. And that's when I started using substances. Um,
So what year would this have been?
so it was 1999.
99. So it's kind of post big AIDS scare when
Well,
it was
yeah. And it
largely
was
mysterious
exactly.
and
Well, it was just a couple years after, because 1996 is when the new medications that came out that that took people off their deathbeds
mm-hmm.
and started to allow people to have life. And but I wasn't aware of that because I grew up in Idaho and I didn't know shit about AIDS. I only knew what I saw in the movie Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, I had HIV. I didn't have AIDS,
Right.
but I didn't even understand that difference. And so it was a very scary and kind of traumatic experience for me and my family because of our ignorance, of our not knowing about the disease and treatments and how it was really going to impact my life.
Well,
And so that, go
and,
ahead.
and around that time, I think it would have been 95 or 96. Magic Johnson really put a face on HIV and made it less, bathhouse, you know,
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily
triple X video, whatever place, and it became like, oh gosh, anybody can get this. It's not just a gay man's disease.
kind of, but I think also like growing up in Idaho, that was like a big city thing. That was
Mm-hmm.
like, those city people.
Right.
Like those were city people problems. Those weren't things that like small town folks would deal with. So I think that was also kind of that belief. And then I didn't see myself as a gay, like I hadn't saw myself as a gay man. So when I had like the time that when I got infected, and there was only one time that I could have gotten infected, and that's when I got infected. And
wow.
it was because I wasn't concerned about HIV because I didn't know it was something I needed to be concerned about. I just didn't want to get a girl pregnant. Like that's my dad told me that my whole life.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a concern at that time. So I just was really kind of ignorant or naive.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know a lot. And that's really a lot of what kind of was the crux of creating Alpha, the HIV/AIDS organization
Mm-hmm.
that I had founded, was because our family was so, and I started that when I was 24, so that was 4 years later after I had been able to kind of like, I guess, begin to accept it a little bit. And deal with it and understand that maybe I wasn't going to die today, that maybe
Mm-hmm.
I could live to be 26 or something. Um, so,
well,
yeah.
So if you had this, um, uh, you know, revelatory moment where God said He loved you anyways, and then you find out this diagnosis, was there any like backtracking? Like maybe I got that message all wrong, and He gave me this. Did you ever have any moments like that, or was it just?
No, I never did kind of go back to that. I just kind of like, yeah, I don't know why, but I just never did. I felt like it kind of gave me comfort in that moment with what I was dealing with, and I haven't really thought to go back again, so to speak, to get a similar comfort for whatever's going on, with HIV, because I was tormented by myself, and I guess even in my own like understanding of God at that time, I thought God like still loved me, and like, but I just couldn't, like, I don't know, it was kind of like I just put God on the shelf, and like God was there and God was like cool with me, but like I just had no relationship with God in a way that I had before, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So how did you tell your family?
Yeah, I actually ended up telling my family. I caught the first plane I could. I was diagnosed May 13th, and I caught the first plane I could home because I didn't. I mean, I was barely 20. Like I didn't have friends. I didn't. You know what I mean? I didn't really have a core group of people, and I also was afraid that I was going to die. And I felt like if I were to die before I could tell my parents, that would like devastate them more than me having it. And I just kind of I needed them, like I needed their support. So I caught the first plane I could, and I landed in Salt Lake City on Mother's Day. And my parents drove up and picked me up, and they brought me home. And I had told myself that I was not going to tell them until the next day because I didn't want to tell them on Mother's Day. And I was going to tell my mom and my dad and my little brother. Or I was going to tell my mom and my dad and my little brother who was 17, and then I was going to tell my mom and my dad's best friend. And I was just going to say it once. That way they kind of knew it, and then they would have the support to kind of deal with it. And then that would be kind of it. But it didn't quite roll out that way. It was probably like 10 o'clock that night, and my family, I had a really hard time composing myself, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I had moments where I would cry, or I would, the family knew something was up.
Yeah.
And my dad they were just like, you know what, like, we don't care if it's Mother's Day or not, just like tell us what's going on. And so I called my grandparents, and because I lived in Wendell, they lived across the street, and they came over, and I sat down my mom, my dad, my grandma, my grandpa, my little brother, and I was like, I basically, you guys have loved and supported me, and I've been able to go out into the world and have this life because you guys have been there to love and support me, and I hope that after what I have to tell you, that you'll continue to be there for me. And I have to tell you that I'm gay. And my grandma ran over and she gave me a hug, and she said, "It's okay, we still love you."
Wow.
And then I said, and I have HIV. And my dad said, "Well, happy fucking Mother's Day."
Oh,
and he left, and my mom cried like I've never heard her cry before. And my grandfather, what did he? I can't remember what he said, but to say the least, it was a lot for everyone to kind of just take in, and I was still kind of trying to figure it out too.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually left the house for a little while after telling them, so that they could all kind of like, I don't know, talk amongst themselves or whatever. And then I came home and went to bed, and the next morning I got up, and my mom, like, the first thing, we like sat at the kitchen table, and she asked me what song I wanted to hear at my funeral.
Oh, geez.
And yeah, and I was just kind of like, damn. But it was also like probably one of the best things that my mom could have said to me, because in that moment she told me that she loved me and that she was going to be there for me no matter what happened to me. She was going to be there for me when I got sick, and she was going to be there for me when I died, and she was going to be there for me even after I died, to like make sure that everything was going to be okay in the way that I wanted it to be for me. And yeah, and then that's when I went back to Arizona, and I learned what it meant to have HIV, and I started using drugs to kind of deal with that reality.
My pulse was racing, like I could feel it just listening to you describe that, and so I just can't imagine the amount of nerves. I mean, it must have just been. And
Well,
go ahead.
it was a really it's so dramatic and so kind of traumatic, and
Mm-hmm.
in that time, like, if I would have known more about HIV, I wouldn't have felt like I had to run and tell them right then. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I maybe could have spent some time to like figure it out, or I don't know. Like there was just so much that happened the way that it happened because we didn't know any different, and that was really why I wanted to start Alpha was um, because I didn't want families to have to go through that unnecessary trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
So you end up back in Arizona and you start hitting the drugs
Yeah.
hard or dabbling or.
I started just like, they told me I had 6 months before I needed to get on treatment, and they told me to take that 6 months to kind of like get my head together or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I had to cancel. I was actually getting ready to move out to LA to sign with an acting and modeling company to pursue an acting and modeling career, and I had to let that go. And my dad did drugs when I was young, and I knew that my dad had a very difficult life that kind of led up to a lot of that use, and I just never felt like I had a good reason. My family, there might have been certain things that I wish they could have provided for me that they couldn't, but they still did a pretty good damn job, and I never really felt like I needed to use substances, and I had finally like come to a point where I knew that I needed to use substances in order to kind of soften the blow of life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I did it. It gave me life in a time that I couldn't get it for myself, and I didn't have God anymore. So,
Right.
it really saved my life in the beginning.
Drugs actually saved your life in the beginning.
Definitely, it allowed me to like even have life. Like
Mm-hmm.
to go through that diagnosis and then to start treatment and then to be dealing with all that kind of stuff on my own and dealing with all the disappointment and the loss. Like it was huge blow, and I could not have taken all of the pain at once
Mm-hmm.
of that, and I needed to have something again just to kind of like soften the blow a little bit so that I could still get up and go to work and take my medication and
Mm-hmm.
still try to be hopefully worth a shit before I died.
That's a perspective you don't hear very often unless you're listening to like Bill Hicks or somebody. That drugs actually. So you don't look back. Do you look back with any regret on that time, or did it get to a point where they served their purpose, but then it went overboard?
Yeah, it just got to a point where it just, I had times when I was messy, and actually when I quit, it was the least. Like I wasn't even using as much as I had once been using. I had, in the beginning it was like ecstasy and party drugs, and
Mm-hmm.
I loved my ecstasy and going out to the clubs in Phoenix and like doing that whole scene, and eventually, like long story, but eventually I ended up having to go back to Wendell to start treatment the second round because the first round I didn't respond well to, and I was very, very sick, and so I had to go home and let my family kind of take care of me so that I could start treatment again. And so I did that when I was 21, but then I ended up moving back out to Arizona again when I was 22, and then I got gang raped, and I then turned to meth to deal with that. So for me, a lot of substance use has been about, it's been, I guess, more of a medicine, if you will, or something to, I don't know. That's just what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually I was able to start Alpha a couple years later. I ended up back in Idaho, and I started Alpha, and I wasn't using drugs at that time. I was just drinking
Mm-hmm.
because it was socially acceptable. And so drinking just, and again, it wasn't like I was a daily drinker. I just got kind of messy at times.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I was like running a nonprofit organization. I kind of started to feel like the things that were going on in my life were so much bigger than me. And I just was blown away, and I really didn't want to fuck it up. And I just had moments where I would drink and I would do shit that was contrary to the person that I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And but it was Mother's Day actually. I had my last drunk the night before, and I got sober on Mother's Day. And somebody just said, "Do you think drinking is causing you to like be an asshole and do these things?" And I was like, yes, that's it. That's why I'm an asshole. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'll just not drink.
Yeah.
And then when I actually went to stop drinking, that's when I realized that how much drinking and drugging had been such a part of my life. And yeah, like how woven it still was.
Mm-hmm.
And to start to create a life. Because I was afraid that if I continued, that I would fuck up Alpha, and I would fuck up the work that was beyond me.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, I was able to just kind of like then get into a support community and start abstaining from substances. And now on May 10th, it'll be 12 years since I've had any sort of substance. And it was like the hardest thing I have ever done, but it's like I think it's probably one of the proudest things.
Yeah.
It's one of the best things I've ever done for myself, was to get sober and begin to like see the truth of who I was and what I'd done, and the truth, not just in negative shit, but actually in the good stuff too. And I was actually at a place in which I could handle the truth. You know, I finally got to a place where I could deal with the pain of having HIV and AIDS, and like just all the shit that happened after that. And along with that, I was finally, I think, at a place where I could start to feel some hurt,
Mm-hmm.
and not drink or use over it.
Alpha was so cool, and I remember not many times, but a few times, uh, a bunch of Alpha volunteers ending up at the 44 Club and singing karaoke. And I don't think I was drinking at the time, but it was always fun, and everybody was just super friendly. And I know there was another time we were at balcony for like a drag competition. It was a drag karaoke competition, and so I got up and sang "The Lion Sleeps Tonight," and I got a huge reaction out of it, and I won a gift card to Pleasure Boutique, I think.
Oh, fantastic!
But I just remember how fun it was, and how chill everybody was, and and if you if you're one of these kind of people that has a irrational, hatred or fear or whatever you want to call it of gay people or trans people, it's like you really should come hang out sometime, because they're fun as hell. They're super fun. I mean, straight people aren't having their own parades, like. But I had a blast hanging with everybody. And another one I just remembered was we were up at some house in the foothills, and we were trying to sort all these shoes.
Yeah, that was at mine and my husband's house, my ex-husband's house. We were sorting shoes for like to put on the Capitol steps. We got like a dumpster of shoes dropped off in the parking lot.
Yeah, I remember that, and I was up there digging through these nasty shoes, trying to find pairs, and I was going, what the hell does this have to do with? I mean, but again, it was fun. It was fun because of the people that were there. It didn't.
But then we had like, I don't know, we had like 1,000 or so. It was hundreds at least of pairs of shoes that we put on the Capitol steps,
right,
like to represent like the number of people with HIV or the number of people who've died, or it was something like that. But it was powerful visual.
Totally, yeah. Because it covered those steps.
Mm-hmm.
So when you started Alpha, what was your intent? What did you want Alpha to be?
Well, I think for me, I just wanted, like, there wasn't anything for me. Like, in some ways, I wanted to create an organization in which that I thought would have been good for me to have and my family to have when I first found out. But there was also even an element of like, I think of even what I needed then. I started talking with people in schools. I went to Quintana High School when I was like 22 or 23, I think. I got invited to go speak at their school and talk about, having HIV. And I went and I did that. And then I started doing that, like I kept getting invited. Health teachers told other health teachers. And actually it was really great. And it was really healing for me and really transformative. And like through that process, I just realized that there was so much more that could be done, and there was no way for me to do it, to do more of it, and so I created an organization in which we could do more to educate the community about HIV and AIDS, and eventually we started testing and providing supportive services and food banks, and we had a secondhand store for a little while, and like all kinds of just really cool stuff. But that wasn't my plan in the beginning. All that sort of stuff just kind of like grew as we moved along. In the beginning, it was really just about trying to create a space in which people could hopefully heal and or like prevent harm, and how HIV can impact an individual and their loved one.
So
in a small town.
So in a city like Boise, which is, probably the most liberal of any city in Idaho, and even then I would say it's only pockets of Boise are sort of liberal.
Right.
Was there any kind of pushback from what kind of problems did you encounter trying to get it off the ground?
Oh yeah, I mean there were people who didn't want to rent to us. There were people that like, because we weren't a gay organization, because we really wanted people to understand that HIV was a virus, not just that just impacted gay people. Most of us happened to be gay in the beginning, but that's just kind of how it worked. And so I think a lot of what we tried to do in the beginning was not to be seen as like the gay organization, but as an HIV service organization in which, like gay and queer, injection drug users, junkies, I say that with love when I say junkie, that like, we were just kind of that mix of people, and we were more focused around HIV and HIV prevention rather than kind of like, gay rights or gay whatever. Even though that's kind of a byproduct of a lot of what kind of happened, I guess.
Yeah. I've got I loved my time in Boise, but I definitely it's definitely kind of old school even now.
Yeah.
But there are some brilliant people, really nice people in Boise, and that's
I love it. I cherish. I mean, it was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had in my life. It was really, I eventually had to leave because, I just didn't know who I was outside of what I did. And I had a really hard time just being Duane. Like I was always like alpha. I was always the HIV advocate, or you know what I mean? It was like,
totally.
I started to have a really toxic relationship with the title and the role, and like just feeling like I needed something more and different for myself. And so I ended up moving out to Chicago. And when I moved to Chicago, at first I was like, I'm just gonna be an ordinary dude. Like, I'm not gonna like, I'm not gonna like work in HIV and AIDS. I'm just gonna be one for a while. And then that didn't last very long. I waited tables for like a month, and I was like, I cannot have nightmares about forgetting to give somebody their shake. Like, I need to go. Like, I have skills. go like use them. And so I ended up doing that in Chicago, and it was good for me because I realized that like I did really well. In Chicago, I worked for a couple of organizations and got to create some really cool programs for people that were just very different than myself. You know, I grew up in Idaho; it's very white, and so it was cool to go out to a city and like just be around people of different backgrounds, black, brown, white, trans, whatever, you know, like just a mix of different people, and to kind of go out there and still be relevant and to still be able to like translate my skills in a large city was kind of in some ways validating, because I felt like maybe I was just kind of cool because I was in Idaho. Do you know what I mean? Or like I was maybe only just kind of good at what I did because I was in Idaho.
Right.
And that just wasn't true. Like I just happened to be good at what I did, and I got better as I went, and I needed to, in order to really grow more, I needed to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a really cool experience. And then ending up in San Francisco too, I think was just another element of growing.
So is Alpha still up and running?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, right now they're closed because of COVID.
Oh,
But
well, sure.
but yeah, no, they're still running, and they provide, you know, STD screenings. They do treatment. They do PrEP. There's definitely, you know, HIV has become a lot more medicalized, and so it's definitely become a little bit more medicalized.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still, you know, kind of has that homey feel to it, I guess.
That's cool. And would you ever start something like that up again?
I've really been, actually, I'm kind of at that point in my life right now where I've been really trying to figure that out. Oh my God, it was such a great experience, but it was also, you know, like, there were also, you know, just there was part of the experience about afterwards, but I've been able to kind of reflect on it. There were so many blind spots that I had, where I feel like, you know, people were harmed not intentionally, but because I wasn't aware enough, or I wasn't willing to step up in a certain way, or you know what I mean? It was like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just feel like there was a part where I'm realizing that like where my mistakes were, I guess, and I've just been concerned about, have I become better to where that's not going to happen?
Well, and you were in your 20s, right?
Oh, I know. I was a child.
Yeah,
I just
totally.
I forget about that sometimes too. Like I got to cut myself some slack, and I don't think I hold it against myself. I just want to be able to step forward into the world and try to cause as little harm as possible. And so, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of energy. But yeah, I'm actually going to be exiting my current employment. I'm planning on exiting it and then going into creating kind of becoming self-employed,
Mm-hmm.
and doing more consultant kind of work. Yeah, so that's what I feel like I'm going to probably end up doing. But I've had some hesitance on creating a new organization. I've created lots of programs and programming and projects and things like that at different organizations, in Chicago and in San Francisco. But I haven't necessarily like created like a nonprofit organization. But I am thinking of starting a small business to do queer spiritual work, and then just to offer support in just my expertise with folks that might be, you know, having challenges in their organization, or maybe they want me to come speak about either HIV or addiction or spirituality or all of those, with different groups, like a college. Like I'm working right now on a spirituality and social work presentation for the University of Chicago. That's just kind of like a video that they're going to use as part of the class. So that's the sort of stuff that I'm really kind of interested in doing. You know, I've always kind of found myself in the tween of things.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that because I'm not like, I didn't go back to college. I don't have any degrees. I'm super brilliant person, and I say that with humility, as in, and the reason why I have to say that is because for so long, I've really walked around with my head low because I don't have that credentialing. I've felt inadequate in a lot of spaces because I didn't have those letters behind my name or whatever.
Right.
And so that's why I'm saying I know that I'm a smart, like, capable person even without those. But I think because I don't have those sorts of credentialing, that allows me to be in this middle space. And so, like, my current job right now, I work with the UCSF, and I work in research, which is even crazy, but I work in anal cancer research, and I work with elderly, gay, and trans folks, and basically work to get them so we can prevent anal cancer that's caused by the human papillomavirus. And so my job is to reach out to community, educate them, connect with them, and then be able to get them into clinics and into the studies so they can access the services that could benefit them and hopefully keep them from, having to deal with anal cancer at some point in their life. So that's the kind of like in between space that I can be in because I don't have that credentialing, but then I also have that experience. You know what I mean? It doesn't take me away. It doesn't take me away from the community. Yeah, I don't know.
That sounds really important, like really important stuff that you're doing. Okay, so Duane, we're gonna take a quick break, and then I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about Bonnie Violet. All right? Okay.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back.
All right.
Okay, we're back with Duane, and so you're living in San Francisco now, right?
Yep, I've been here about 3 years now.
And did you go straight there from Chicago?
I did. Yep, I moved here by Amtrak. When I moved to Chicago, I sold and got rid of everything but one bag, and so when I left Chicago, I did the same thing except for I left with 2 bags. But I took the Amtrak. It was like 51 hours and moved to San Francisco. I had a air mattress in a bay window that I was renting for $75 a week. I had 4 weeks that I could rent it for, and then by that time I needed to have a different place to live and hopefully a job or something.
You had a mattress in a window?
Yep, an air mattress in a window.
And that was
yep,
wow.
$75 a week.
Wow. And so you had 4 weeks to get yourself situated in San Francisco.
Yeah, and I just basically, I knew Chicago was I knew I was done with Chicago. I kind of wanted to be back on the west side of the country, a little closer to Idaho, but I didn't want to go to Idaho. So it was like San Francisco or Portland, and I was like, San Francisco was number one. I was like, why not go for your number one? And if it doesn't work out there, because this is like the most expensive city to live in in the United States, and so I was like, I'll just come out here, and if the universe wants me to be here, things will line up, and I'll be here, and if they don't, then I'll end up in Portland, and the universe, I guess, wants me here.
Yeah, that's a pretty impressive feat, I would think, to find a place in 4 weeks in San Francisco.
I got really lucky. Yeah, I've been renting this room for 3 years now. So yeah, it's been pretty easy. And it's fairly inexpensive. It's in a good part of town. I got really, really, really lucky. But yeah.
That's killer. So, what is your Instagram name?
So I have Sparkle is as Sparkle does. That's my Instagram. And yeah, I mean, I'm assuming you might be going through kind of like...
Yeah, well, what I was driving at is every once in a while I will see a beautiful woman with in a wedding gown or something like that, but with the full blown beard, and it'll stop you in your tracks if you're just scrolling along, and so that is Bonnie Violet, right?
Yeah. Bonnie Violet is my drag name. It was created. I have a Grandma Bonnie and I have a Grandma Violet, and so Bonnie Violet is my drag name. And yeah, so I started doing that when I moved to San Francisco. I started doing that a few months afterwards to raise money for charity for the sober community. So they have like a sober drag show every month, and so I got invited to participate in that. Actually, I participated in that. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time, but I was really nervous, and I wanted to make sure I looked right and had it all together, but I didn't really do anything to try to get it together. And then I had a friend of mine who had passed from suicide, and I was just like, fuck it, like, just do it. Like, I don't know, for whatever reason, he was also a drag queen, beautiful drag queen, and I just was like, you know what, like, just do it. And I just felt inspired to do it. And so I called them up and said, hey, can I be in the show? And they're like, yeah. And it was like in 2 weeks, and I did a Kesha song, and I've loved it. It's been an interesting thing for me, because one of the things that I had a really hard time doing drag in the beginning because of my own gender. So like, I am transgender, and I've been trying to understand what that means, and drag was really hard for me, I think, in the beginning, is because it was starting to, like, it was really personal. Like, a lot of people talk about they do drag, and it's like this character, or it's this like thing that they put on. And for me, it was, I think I was starting to reveal parts of myself that I had always wanted to do. And so it was a very like vulnerable, difficult, hard thing for me. And I just kept doing it. And then I started to kind of understand my gender a little bit more. And I don't know like where it'll end up as far as like aesthetically, but I kind of am in this like space of like you said, you know, like I was a bearded, you said, but you also said I was like a beautiful, like bearded woman, you know, like, and that I think was like interesting to me, is that like I did feel really pretty, even though I was bearded, and like it just felt pretty. I think a lot of times bearded queens are more campy, but for me, I felt really like I'd never felt more like beautiful, and I just really liked the way that I looked and the way that I felt. And so I started, and I got to where like I didn't want to get out of the clothes, and I wanted to, I don't know, like, and I'd already been like, I've been using she, her pronouns like since like while I was in Chicago. I started using she, her pronouns, and started being more like I wanted to be like, if you really like, to me, like, so my gender has been kind of a spiritual experience for me. I feel like the more that I've dove into myself and connected with myself and my spirit, the more femme and the more queer I become on the outside. I feel like I'm actually starting to look more like the person that I am, like my spirit is. And so if you were to refer to me as she, which most of the people in my life who were close to me did, it was because you saw me. You know what I mean? Like, you saw me. Even if I had a beard and I look like a dude or whatever, you call me she, then you see me, right? And so that kind of has then evolved into, because I used to be like, when I was younger, I used to tell people, don't call me she, I'm a he. I'm a dude who likes dudes. Like, don't mix that up or whatever. But that was like my own internalized bullshit. And so like, I've just been really trying to embrace and understand like who I am and be and do what I want when I want, without worrying about my dad yelling at me, you know, or the world yelling at me, or even me yelling at me about, why do you want to wear that?
Yeah.
Like, what is that about? Like, but then if I don't do it, then I feel like I'm betraying myself in some way. And so the last couple of years, I've really been exploring and trying to understand that aspect of myself. And I'm kind of at a point where I'm comfortable with not really identifying as any sort of gender. Like, so transgender is actually more of an umbrella term.
Yeah.
I think a lot of folks think that trans is about male to female or female to male, but transgender is all of that. It's non-binary. I kind of feel like I'm more like a third gender. Like I'm both. Like I feel like I'm not a man, but I'm not a man, and I'm not a woman, but I'm not a woman. And I just, I have both parts of myself, and I just try to express that in the ways that I can. And I recently cut my beard off, which has been really weird, but I felt really attached to it. Like I felt like maybe it was like a part of my masculinity that I was holding on to, which is really interesting because I thought it was pretty and femme, and actually I felt like I look less femme without a beard now than I did with the beard.
Wow, that's interesting.
It's really interesting, and I've had people even like I had a girl at work, she like freaked out. She's like, "What are you doing? Why is you?" I was like, I don't know. I just felt like I wanted to get rid of it. She's like, "Oh my God, you look ugly. Like, what? Why did you do that?" And I was like, "Well, and she's like, "Now you just look like a dude, or like a regular guy or something like that." And but I think that was her way of saying like, this isn't you, or the way that I know you. And so I think I'm still trying to figure out how to let that out, because it's a really hard, I wish it wasn't so hard, but it is. Like, I haven't talked with my family really that much in like over a year or so, because I don't feel like they never could hold this part of me. They never could be okay with that. I never felt like they could really be okay with that feminine, sissy, like, kid. And I still am struggling to like let them into that part of me. And then, like the world, even though I'm in San Francisco, like I've never been called a faggot more in my life than in San Francisco. But I've also never been like praised and hooted and hollered and like encouraged just walking down the street, heels and a pencil skirt and a beard, like, so it's like this mixed bag. And then depending upon what part of town you're in, or what time of the day, or like I work in a hospital now, like I interviewed for my job in like a heels and a pencil skirt and a blouse, and I got the job, and then I've never wore that again, because I work in a very, like, I work in a hospital, and I work with so many people that are not like me, so I get freaked out. So that's something I've really been trying to figure out. And a lot of the spiritual work is what I'm drawn to do. So that's where I can show up more like myself. And I think I'm typically a little bit more in the between of both male and female kind of at the same time. And like you said, it just kind of fit. It just suits. I think when I'm really being myself, it just fits. And I think people see it too. It's like, I wouldn't expect that to look so cohesive or beautiful or whatever, but it does.
No, like, it's an amazing look. I've went through those pictures, when I see them, and I'm always you just don't see a look like that. So I think there's, the kind of a curiosity about it, but it does aesthetically, it's like, that looks right though. Like that, it's, you're not staring at it like it's some sort of anomaly. It just looks amazing, and has a very, there's a sexual, vibe to it, but it's also, there's almost a wholesome vibe. I don't know. There's a lot going on, but so So I guess some drag queens, or maybe most, I'm not sure, they have a persona they slip into, and you're saying Bonnie Violet is not that.
Well, Bonnie Violet has become now like a performance. I mean, I don't know. Like right now, Bonnie Violet is like the person that I am on stage. Mm-hmm. Whenever I do like a performance in drag or whatever, Bonnie Violet is what I go by. But I still feel like she's just kind of an extension of me. But because I do kind of think of her as this performance element of me, I definitely am a lot more comfortable. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't really like get too I get nervous in the way that anybody would get nervous in front of a crowd, but I don't get nervous about showing who I am in these kind of spaces anymore, which is really kind of cool. But that's because I kept showing up as who I am, and people still loved me. And that's really kind of been like my whole life is kind of getting to the space of being able to like, and learning that whenever I like share this part of myself, like people will still love me. And I feel like that's the thing that I'm afraid of, is that not necessarily even like love, but I don't know what it is. But I've got to a point in my life where I can't not express who I am. Like, my goal is to express all of who I am wherever I am. And if I choose not to, it's my choice. It's not because like I have to, because it's not allowed or it's not okay. And so I don't go to spiritual places that wouldn't be okay with that. I don't take jobs that wouldn't be okay with that. I don't live with people who wouldn't be okay with that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just have to do that in order to kind of protect myself.
So is there some place you would like to see her go? I mean, as a performance artist, or is it just going to be, something you continue to do just to stay true to yourself and express?
It's a really hard thing. There's so much things that I'm like unpacking to kind of get to that spot, because there's elements of times when I get to like, girl, why don't you just like, like get boobs, get a vagina, like be a girl. Like, it would just be so much easier. Just be a girl, right? And then there are times, and sometimes that seems like okay, and that might be where I'm going, but I'm not quite there yet. And other times I'm like, you know what? You're just like a sissy, like feminine boy, like whatever, like. But I don't know. It's been a really kind of interesting experience for me, because there's also like the sexuality aspect of it as well too, which I'm happy to hear that you saw that in Bonnie. Like, you saw Bonnie as sexual, because a lot of times people think they like, oh, that's cute, I love that, or whatever, but they don't want to fuck it, and and you're like, I still want to be fucked, like I still want to have a sexual relationship, and I don't want to feel like, a lot of times I feel like I have to remove those parts from me in order to be sexually attracted, like sexually desired. And that's something that I'm coming to understand, is that people are going to be sexually desired. I do have that part, and I don't have to like hide or remove or take away those parts of myself. That's where I'm trying to get. If I'm honest, usually I'll like mask it up to go, hook up with somebody. But but I've also found people that love that femininity of me, and in all the ways. So that's just where I'm trying to get to with it all. For me, really.
Yeah. So somebody has to be down to date Bonnie as well, huh?
Right, that's a part of me. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, and I still I wear heels every day. Like, that's whether I'm like, no matter what I'm wearing, I'm usually in a pair of heels. Not always like stilettos or something, but at least like some boots. They all have a heel on it.
Yeah.
I have long earrings and my rhinestones glued to my face. and Bonnie Violet. And Bonnie Violet is definitely like kind of like the extreme of all that. But parts of her are already on me and in me all the time. But there's 3 threes in her name. All the E's are threes, and 333 is grace, which is a spiritual concept for me, and it's kind of like my higher power concept in the sense that I try to live my life with grace, and grace is something that I have a really hard time achieving, because grace is this idea that you are valuable and you have worth just because you do, and because you are, not because of something that you did to earn it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my whole life I've worked so hard to earn whatever it is in my life, and I feel like that's come from a place of me thinking I'm not good enough, and that somehow I need to, like, I don't know. So for me to just be like really truly believe that I'm enough and I'm of worth and of value just as much as everyone else, regardless of what I do or don't do. In my heart of hearts, I believe that, like, I believe in that truth, but I have a really hard time, like, really connecting with it and going out in the world really knowing that about myself, believing that about myself. But I still try, and that's why it's like a higher power
Right.
kind of thing, because it's like something I can't quite achieve, but I'm going to work on it.
So, are you an actual chaplain, or is queer chaplain, is that something?
Yeah, so I do, I call it a queer chaplain to the sense because I'm queer, but also because it's kind of a chaplain of another sort. So chaplains typically work with people around death and dying. So they're like in hospitals or the military, things like that. And you're kind of a spiritual person who shows up as kind of an unbiased, just to be present with people during death and dying situation. And so I believe that death and dying happens all the time and often, and specifically around identities. So I feel called to be with people around death and dying to themselves, to parts of themselves, whether it's their addictive part, their gender, their sexual orientation, basically, the same things that I've struggled with, dying to my identities, and kind of like helping people through that process, because I think ultimately, like I said, like I'm getting to a point in my life where like I'm just me. Like I'm just me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really just trying to like let go of those identities, and it's a huge loss. And those identities are what protected me. They are what helped me connect with people and do different things and grow in certain ways. And so, but I do believe in order to be fully integrated, I need to be able to kind of let go of those identities. And so I want to help people go through that process. So some of that's like one-on-one conversations. Sometimes I'll run groups where I'll have a group of people come in for a regular basis, and we'll talk about HIV and spirituality, or substance use and spirituality, or gender, and we'll basically invite your spirit. I believe spirituality is anything that lifts you, that elevates you.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that was ecstasy for a while. That was dancing at the club. That was, now for me, it's about being able to like express myself more fully. Like that lifts me, that elevates me. And so helping people connect with their spirit, because I feel like the spirit, once you lift it up, then that animates your body. I just want to help people lift themselves in a way in which, I don't know, they can animate their body in a way that brings joy and pleasure and all that sort of stuff. And so, because I think when we're full of shame and we're full of doubt and we're full of hurt and we're full of pain, it's hard to be lifted. And so I just feel like that's what I'm called to do. And and it's so crazy because that's like, I thought I was going to do that for Jesus, you know, when I was little.
Yeah.
And now I realize now that, like, you know, I thought I was fuck up and, like, I could never matter or do anything, like, that God wanted me to do, and, like, that's all a lie. And if I look back, I can see, like, my whole life up to this point has been all about being of service to my community and helping elevate people out of challenging and difficult times. And you know what I mean? Like, it's even the same shit that my parents taught me. We were always poor, but we always, like, at holidays, we like grabbed up our best toys, or we went shopping and we gave it to families who were in worse spots than us, you know? Like, that was just how I was raised by my family. That's the God that I came to understand, and that's what I believe spirituality is for me today. You know, it's like I'm blessed in so many ways, and it's because I've gotten through these things, and there are other people that could benefit from being helped through that as well. There are people there for me in some ways, and in other ways not. And so I'm hoping that I can show up in those ways that I really wanted.
Identity is such a complicated, you know what I mean? Because, you know, everything is wrapped up in it. And this is what I found. Like, I just turned 40 this year, and I really enjoyed my 30s, because my 30s is when I realized a lot of the stuff in my 20s was kind of bullshit. And it was like, especially, you know, like my story being native, but not really growing up around natives. So I was always trying to sort of be what I thought natives were supposed to be. And, you know, I got it in my head that natives were these whiskey drinking, rowdy, you know, and so that's what I spent my 20s doing. And I was like, I'm just this crazy drunk Indian. And then it's like, nah, dude, you're just a drunk. That's really what you are. And so to get to my 30s and start to realize and strip away some of this other, you know, it's like at a piece of clay, you know, just kind of getting the gunk off of the clay to get down to the sculpture. And, so I think, kind of with, I'm sure it's the same with, you know, queer, trans people, is a lot of trying to figure out that identity and what's real and what's not.
Yeah, I think it's our human experience. Like, even just hearing you talk about, like, your kind of relationship with identities, you know, they serve us well until they don't. And then we realize that we're different than that, or that we're more than that. Probably say we're more than that, or we're that so yeah, I mean, I just feel like sometimes I feel like I'm totally unique, don't get me wrong, but I feel like that's just what we do in life, is that we, at least the way that we live, you know, how people exist today, at least, you know, we're categorized and we have these identities, and because we have these identities, that makes choices for us, that tells us who we date, that tells us when we have sex, that tells us where we live, it tells us what jobs we do, it tells us what behaviors we do or we don't do, you know, like, because I choose to be a gay man, then all of a sudden there was all these things, just like when you said you connected with your native part, then it meant all of these things, and it's just so limiting. Like, I don't identify as a gay man because I'm not a man anymore, but I also, like, I'm open to, like, I'm more pansexual or bisexual. I'm open to being sexual with anyone who is who wants to be sexual with me, and I want to be sexual with them. It doesn't necessarily matter how they identify so much anymore, which is so crazy for me to be able to say that at my age, because there was so much of time that I needed to scream that I was gay, even if I was open to something different, because, like, I had to proclaim that for you, right? So that you knew where I stood, and you know what I mean? I don't know. It was just this sort of thing. At least from my experience, I think there are people that are gay, and straight, and, you know, all that sort of stuff. That's none of my business. All I know is, like, for me, I feel like this is kind of where I've always been, and it's just taken me a while to really be honest with myself. And yeah.
Well, and it was also for me in my 30s where a spirituality started to develop, where um, I kind of had to believe in a higher power. Otherwise, I didn't know if I was going to survive. Especially, when my son died and I was drinking a lot. And well, first of all, most of that time I didn't really want to survive. But when I got to the point where I did, it kind of became, well, I need something else. Like, what's here is not going to get it done. And I just started, I guess, kind of started meditating and really just kind of putting out my thoughts and feelings just out into the universe, kind of talking to nobody in particular, to the point where when I started seeing results, I had to go, man, I need to do this every day, because it's like, something's happening here. And now it's like, if I lay in bed and I haven't had a conversation with God or whoever, I have to actually get up and do it, because I'll just lay there, but it took me kind of realizing that I needed it. And I'm not a churchy guy, and I'm not anti-churchy people or anything like that. It's just my own little thing. It's like it is what I needed it to be at the time, and still do.
Right. Yeah, I totally hear that.
Well, what do you think's coming up for you? I mean, what does your future hold? If you're heading back to school, or you what do you think's going to happen in the next 5-10 years for you?
Yeah, I really want to be really intentional and do work with people's spirit and spiritual health for people, in whatever way that is for people. But I really want to invite the idea of spiritual health, or the spirit, as being part of kind of holistic healthcare even. I'm really wanting to be set up as a chaplain at a sexual health clinic, and be available that if people wanted to talk, basically have a screener, how you screen to see if somebody's depressed, or if they're having housing problems, or they're having domestic violence problems, whatever sorts of situations. They kind of ask these questions when you go in and see a doctor or other kind of professionals. And then if, certain things are clicked, then you're like, oh, well, you might want to talk to so-and-so, or you might want to do this. And so what I'd like to do is actually be able to do that around sexuality and sexual health. And so, because I know that my experience with my spirit and my spirituality led to a lot of sexual behaviors and activities that caused harm to myself, led to infections, led to not dealing with infections in the time matter, things like that. So, and a lot of that had to do with shame about having something, shame about my behavior, shame about being gay, whatever, because I had the religious trauma. So I think being able to talk with people who are kind of open to this idea of connecting with their spirit around sexual health or other sorts of things, and then kind of helping people connect with either a mentor or communities of faith, or have groups where people can come and kind of talk about how spirituality is related to their sexual health. It's really kind of about inviting God into your sex, so to speak. And being really intentional about it. So I'd love to really kind of explore it and understand that, because part of that is I want to understand it for myself. I've evolved in some ways, but I feel like there's still so much more that I can evolve and come to understand by talking with other people about their experience as well. And so, and I don't think that everyone can do this, because for so long, I had sexual health clinics and I did those things, and if somebody said, I want to come set up and be a chaplain and talk about spiritual shit with your clients, I would have been fuck off, go somewhere else. But that's because I didn't see them as one of me, right? I feel like the fact of how I show up and how I am, that people would feel okay, you're one of me. You might even be a little freakier than me, and you're talking about the spirituality. So I think for me, it's about kind of finding a way to be really intentional about spiritual work with queer folks, and to hopefully not only like for the individuals, but also for like the world to see queer people as spiritual beings. I've been doing dragon spirituality workshops. I actually did a church service here that was centered around dragon spirituality, and I'm working on doing another one in a set of series too. So I have some videos online from the interviews and stuff, but really just kind of like, I mean, I feel like drag queens have always been kind of spiritual leaders for the gay community. Most of them probably wouldn't say that, but they've lifted our community, they've led our community, they've been the visible people, they've raised money, they took care of us when we were dying for AIDS. They were, you know what I mean? Like, they were kind of like our spiritual leaders. And so I think it's helpful to kind of, again, lace our narrative with some sort of spiritual context. I think it's helpful to build resilience and hope that when you can't see what's at play fully, that you can know that, like, the universe or God or whatever is still at play.
Which would be, because with certain sects of people, the idea of church or religion, will give them a stink face, and they'll think it's evil or this and that. And, there's certain sects of Christians or religious groups that would say the same thing about being gay. So if you could tie those things together and have this overlap where there's an understanding, not just between the groups, but within the groups themselves, I think.
Well, and to have such an aversion toward the other,
right?
That says more about you than it does about it.
Right.
So so it's about helping people through that, so they can let go of it.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't have such a strong feeling about any of that. Like you can be a Christian and like not be gay and not like think it's okay, but you don't have to have this like hatred toward it.
Yeah.
Just like you don't have to have a hatred toward a religion or whatever. I mean, there are things that are done wrong, and you know what I mean. But like,
sure.
I don't know. I just feel like if you have such a hate, that's usually, that's coming from a place of pain.
Yeah.
And if we don't transform our pain, we will transmit it, and that'll come out either on ourselves or with the people around us. And I feel like that's what our job is, with each generation, is to heal a little bit of the pain and not transmit all of the same pain to the next generation. My dad was hit. He was physically hit. He never physically hit us. He maybe didn't show up in some other ways, but he never hit us. That's what he could do. He taught us kindness and generosity, like that, like he did his part and instilled that in me and my brother, and now we get to do our part to try to like change that experience for the next group of people, the next generation.
Yeah, and it feels like we're trending that way,
Totally.
and it seems like the kids now are definitely more open and accepting than the kids our age back in the day.
Oh yeah.
And they just seem way more aware and in tune, and they're still kids, but they seem to have a much I think it's because of the amount of information they're exposed to on any given day. I think it just gives them a better view of the world than we would have had.
But they're not isolated in their experience. And that's a lot of what the problem is. Like you're like for me, it's like I didn't see or know anybody else like me, so it was super isolating. but once I could see that there were other people like me or who had these affinities or these things that I kind of was drawn to, then that kind of gave me permission to like explore those things as well. And that's what I hope I do for other people too. I hope other people look at me and they then see that they can explore something within themselves that they couldn't before. And usually the people who really have a problem with like myself or other people is that they resent that they have a part of themselves that they told themselves that they couldn't do because of whatever reason, So I think that's also an important thing for people to exist more fully as well too, because I think it's better for you, but I think it also, challenges the people around you to be better.
Well, I think we should kind of wrap this up. I've got.
I know. It's like,
but there's still so much I could talk to you about. Do you think that? Do you ever look at HIV and you getting HIV? Do you ever look at that as almost a blessing, given how your life turned out?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, oh my God, I love so much about me, and HIV, it taught me a lot. And it created a lot of opportunity for me to just really be honest and be real. Same with I don't know, it's just I would never not be I really genuinely am so happy to be who I am. It's this queer pansexual, I don't know what, I wouldn't want to be anyone else. I'm really grateful for, and I know that I everything had to happen for me to get here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yeah, I really wouldn't change a thing.
What would you say to 20-year-old Duane today?
Probably the same thing that I could say to myself today, and it was probably the same thing that my mom told me when I was getting off of meth, and I told her that I didn't want to be alive anymore. And I would just say, you're not dead. Live your life.
Mm-hmm.
You're not dead yet. Live your life. Just live it. Don't be so hard on yourself.
That's a good one. That's the one everybody can follow, I'm sure, meth or not. Don't be so hard on yourself. Myself included. All right, well, we went almost 2 hours. That's pretty amazing.
Oh, wow. How did we do that? I guess it might have to be 2, huh?
Yeah.
We'll have to do some editing.
Yeah. It didn't seem like it. That was really, really fun. I had a good time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on. And do you want to plug any events or pages or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think if people are curious about any of the stuff that I talked about, I'm Instagram. I'm Sparkle is as Sparkle does, but also a queer chaplain on YouTube. I do have some YouTube videos up, and I'm hoping to be doing more of that. I've been wanting to write a book for a while, and I think I might actually do it through video, and probably through Instagram, TV, and YouTube.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Thanks for giving me some of your Sunday night, and just thanks again for being on. I was really, really happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much, and good luck with your podcast. I listened to them, and they've been really great to listen to. So, good luck with your adventure and your journey.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're putting good stuff out. You're putting good stuff out in the world.
Thank you.